more likely than not raising a red flag for intelligence services.
And Khan is expected to be back in court for a detention hearing on Thursday. We have reached out to his attorney once again today and have not heard back.
Pamela Brown reporting there. Well, British police say they have foiled a terror plot by Islamic extremists, one the London Police Commissioner calls quite a serious case.
Yeah, 4 men are under arrest and investigators are now searching several homes and vehicles in the London area. Our senior international correspondent Nick Robertson has details.
The police are saying these arrests are in relation to Islamist terrorism. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner in London says that this was a serious case, that the police are taking a more interventionist policy action, if you will, and that these arrests relate or have ties going back to Iraq and Syria. An indication, therefore, not saying it specifically, but an indication, therefore, that they may have links to ISIS. Now, what we know in the early hours of Tuesday morning, the police raided different premises in the centre and the west of London, arresting 4 young men. One of the men was tasered during the operation. The police say there were no injuries there, but they also say that armed police were present during these arrests. They say that they continue to investigate the premises, continue to investigate vehicles that they found during the arrest operations. But the indications are amidst heightened security threat levels here, knowing that in Australia recently 15 young men were arrested by police there on suspicion of being about to perpetrate acts of terrorism on the streets of Sydney, potentially involving beheading people on the streets of Sydney. So all of this playing into concerns in Britain at the moment, and the police commissioner again saying that they're being more interventionist. Those 4 young men still being held, still being questioned, 2 of them 20, 2 of them 21. Nick Robertson, CNN, London.
All right, let's check some other stories in the news right now. And Twitter is suing the US government for the right to reveal more about surveillance requests. It says it's forbidden from disclosing certain information about government requests for users' data relating to national security. The company says this violates its right to free speech. Twitter says it wants to be more transparent with users about the scope of US surveillance.
A North Korean diplomat has admitted that his country uses what he called detention centers for people who need to, quote, improve their mentality and look back at their wrongdoings. But he insisted there are no prison camps in North Korea. He was responding to a UN report criticizing North Korea's human rights record.
All right, well, don't let the applause fool you. Tuesday was a tough day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was down more than 270 points. The losses were prompted in part by concerns about economic growth, especially in Europe. Investors will be looking today for clues about how soon the US Federal Reserve will begin raising interest rates.
All right, let's get you the latest information on the still growing concern over Ebola in Spain. European Union officials want to know how a nurse's assistant in Madrid contracted the deadly virus.
Yeah, real concern. Another assistant who worked with her is one of 4 people in Spain under observation for possible Ebola. These developments have hospital workers very concerned. CNN's Isa Suarez has more.
There's anger and fear in the streets of Madrid. Here at Carlos III Hospital, where a female nurse's assistant is being treated for Ebola, these healthcare workers are worried about their safety. This as revelations come to light over the hospital's handling of the first ever Ebola case in Europe.
Errors of protocol have only occurred in that doctors and workers treating the patient were not informed quickly enough if the suspected case was positive. We're talking about 2 hours to confirm. And the second problem was the time it took when we asked for the patient's transfer to Carlos III. There was more than an 8-hour delay.
The patient eventually arrived at Carlos III Hospital, and we're told she was taken to a ward that was cordoned off. The staff remain anxious. They're concerned over what they say is a lack of procedure.
Pues de inseguridad total.
There is a total lack of security, a lack of information. We don't know how to treat these patients. They have told us nothing. I personally went through the emergency room twice yesterday and have no idea if I came into contact with this person. I have no idea if I might be infecting other people, and we feel angry, powerless.
As fear spreads, health authorities are working around the clock, tracing anyone who may have come into contact with the woman. She caught the virus last month whilst treating 2 Spanish missionaries who later died of the disease after controversially being flown home from Sierra Leone and Liberia.
We have looked at all of her contacts, both familiar and professional, and we detected 22 contacts outside the hospital that will be monitored. The patient went on vacation the day after treating the doctor that came back from Liberia and did not have more contacts inside the hospital. Therefore, the contacts that we're looking at are those who treated her at the other hospital.
Union leaders representing health workers are blaming substandard equipment and a lack of training for the spread of Ebola in Spain.
The training sessions were limited to showing staff how to put on and take off individual protection suits.
Despite this, Spanish health authorities insist staff at this hospital were following WHO procedures and protocol. But with the virus now in the heart of Europe, EU officials want answers from Spain as to what exactly went wrong. Isa Suarez, CNN, Madrid, Spain.
Well, CNN's Al Goodman is live in Madrid and he joined just now. So, Al, of course, there are a lot of elements to this story, but we want to start with the 4 potential new cases of Ebola in Spain and also, of course, get an update on the nurse's assistant who is the first person to contract Ebola outside of West Africa. What is the situation?
Hi, Rosemary. All 5 of them are here in this facility, the Carlos III or Carlos III Hospital, the reference hospital. Now, the nurse's assistant is said to be doing all right given the situation. She's being treated with WHO-recommended treatments, so she's doing okay, they say. Now, the other 4 who are in the hospital under sort of a close watch to see whether they might become Ebola virus carriers include 2 other healthcare workers, although one may be released today because we were told that she has tested negative, officials saying, so she may be released. There's also the husband of the nurse's assistant who has the virus and a man who recently returned to Spain from Africa. In addition, they're looking at about 50 other people outside of the hospital, some from the medical team who treated those missionaries who died here from the Ebola virus, and others at a different hospital where the nurse's assistant initially a couple days ago and was around people without protection before she was brought over here under police guard and totally protected. Rosemary?
All right, and Al, Spain's Prime Minister is expected to meet with lawmakers this hour. And Ebola, of course, expected to be discussed. How likely is it that they'll come up with a plan there and then to deal with the deadly virus? Given the anger, we saw those demonstrations just before we came to you live, those nurses and doctors saying they're not being told anything.
Well, this is the weekly question and answer session in Parliament. Actually, Ebola is not on the agenda either for the Prime Minister or for the Health Minister. However, there's a great expectation that it will come up. If so, it would be the Prime Minister's first statements publicly about this crisis, and that's going on right now. Now, another part of this story is that the dog of the couple, that's the nurse's assistant who has the virus, and her husband, who's also in the hospital on suspicion he might develop it, authorities are saying they want to euthanize, sacrifice the dog because out of extreme precaution, because they say the dog may be carrying the fluids from its owners, the man and the woman, the married couple. And the husband has been trying to mount a social media campaign to quarantine the dog but not kill it. So that's a whole separate related angle to this story. But basically the key issue here is the concern among the healthcare workers that they didn't get the information or possibly particularly the equipment, and a kind of a lack of answers publicly from government officials who have so far said everything was done right. We'll take a look and try to find out what went wrong.
Yeah,
okay?
And we totally understand the man wanting to save the dog of his wife and himself, but the problem is dogs and animals don't tend to show the symptoms, do they? So even if they were put in isolation, you could never be sure. So any fight on social media would possibly come to no end there, right?
That's right. Well, they're not saying that the dog would develop Ebola, but that the dog being in the house, and remember its fluids, bodily fluids and contact, if the dog was on the couch where they were or in the kitchen or whatever, this is what an official from the health ministry explained to us last night, that's why they're paying so, the authorities are trying to be very cautious and put that dog down.
Understood. All right, CNN's Al Goodman reporting there live from Madrid. Appreciate that, Errol.
Now, what about others suffering with Ebola? Well, the first Norwegian to contract Ebola in Africa has arrived home for treatment. The unnamed staffer for Doctors Without Borders was working in Sierra Leone. She was put in isolation over the weekend and flown back to Norway Tuesday. Doctors Without Borders, also known as Médecins Sans Frontières, is one of several aid groups working to stop the Ebola outbreak in West Africa.